allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tess, why don't you read the...
Okay, legal notice. Please take notice that the Town of Delaware Town Board will hold its 2014 reorganizational meeting on Wednesday, January 8th, 2014, at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Municipal Building, 104 Main Street, Hortonville, to be followed by the regular board meeting. By order of the town board.
Okay, the first thing on that reorganization meeting is the oath of office. And we have
Right here behind you.
Justice John Kramer here to do that, and he's gonna do it, I guess we'll do it at the whole board.
You all gotta stand up, whole board. Well, only the newly elected ones.
Yes, that's right. Oh, okay.
That's you, me, and
That's you?
Oh.
me and Al.
Yeah, you were.
Okay, yes.
Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Al Cephas,
Do solemnly swear
We solemnly
solemnly
swear
swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
to the office to which I've been elected
to the office which I've been elected,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Congratulations.
Thank you, John.
We need to sign here, guys.
Again?
Different,
This one.
This is the oath. You sign here. This is the oath, so here you sign right there. See, I have that problem on this side because I'm left-handed. And you're here. Hey, come on. I'll sign, we'll give it to John. Move on.
Okay, let's see. All right. At this time, I would like to read the appointments for this calendar year. And we start out with the building inspector and code enforcement officers, James McElroy. Bookkeeper and secretary, Lillian Barnfine. Bookkeeper and buildings clerk, Brenda Long. Registrar, Lillian Barnfine. Budget officer, Edward Sykes. County Planning Board Chair, Jerry Euchre. Fire Advisory Board Representative, Paul Hendershot. 9/11 is, representative is the code enforcement officer. You know, we didn't talk about that, Jim. You're it. Office of the Aging, RSVP Advisory Committee, Eleanor Glazel. Office of the Aging Council.
Jadwiga Tokas.
Oh, right.
That's right.
Town Attorney, Kenneth Klein. Planning and Zoning Attorney, Kenneth Klein. County Clerk, Sally Cregan. Excuse me. Court Clerk, not County Clerk. Court Constable, Roy Sumfleth. Cleaning Service, Linda Eschenberg. Dog Control Officer, Ray and Bonnie Swack. We have a tag team there. Town Engineer is Delaware Engineering. Assessor is Renee Ozamak. Deputy Assessor, Virginia Ankar. Data Collectors, Joe Mellon and Thomas Totten. Board of Assessment Review, Chair is Evelyn Rupert. Members Noreen Rudge, Eddie Round, Vincent Alacunis, and Dave Knutson. Grants Coordinator Carol McElroy. Historian Cindy Herbert. Deputy Town Clerk Joanne Maloney and Christine Myers. Deputy Supervisor Harold Roder Jr. Deputy Building Inspector Greg Seminitz. Deputy Highway Superintendent Michael Eschenberg. Upper Delaware Council Representative Harold Roder, with an alternate of David Peters, and Scenic Byway Representative Rose DeCristofaro, an alternate of Robin Maley. Planning Board, we go into the Planning Board too, is that right? Gerald Euchre is chair, as mentioned before. Lillian Barnfine is secretary. Members Terry Ziers, Kara McElroy, David Peters, and Warren Blumenthal. Zoning Board of Appeals, chair Joe Schultz, secretary Lillian Barnfine. Members Linda Roach, Kristen Porter, Bonnie Cunningham, and Brad Walrod. Elected officials, Edward T. Sykes. Town Council, Cindy Herbert, Harold Roder, Alfred Stepick. We have a vacancy which we'll deal with later. Town Clerk and Tax Collector Tess McBeath. Town Justice, the Honorable John Kramer and the Honorable Eric Nystrom. Highway Superintendent William Eschenberg. And I think that's it. Is that?
You know what, there's an error on Virginia Oncar, she's the assessor clerk, and I had it down as deputy assessor on the first page. So,
Okay.
when you get to that, there's a correction.
Well, we already read her name. So
Right,
she's
so-
she is a
Assessor clerk.
assessor clerk.
There's one error.
It's a matter of title.
Gotta have the right one.
All right, and there's nothing else. Do I read the rest of the board meetings and stuff? I guess I might as well. I'm on a roll.
Sure.
All board meetings of the town of Delaware for 2014 are to be held on the second Wednesday of each month, with workshops to be held on the first Wednesday of each month as needed, except such special meetings requested by the supervisor or the town board. Said meetings shall commence at 7 p.m. and are to be held at the Town of Delaware Municipal Building, 104 Main Street, Hortonville. All mileage connected with the Town of Delaware work by the town officials shall be in accordance with the Internal Revenue Service prevailing rate. The official depositories for the town, First National Bank of Jeffersonville, I guess primary, and we have Catskill Hudson and the Bank of America also listed. Edward T. Sykes, Supervisor, Harold Roder, Junior Deputy Supervisor, shall be authorized as signatures for each fund account. The supervisor shall be authorized to prepay for postage and to pay utilities and service contracts when due. At the determination of the supervisor, all accounts are to be interest-bearing, and the supervisor is directed to invest idle funds and certificates of deposit at his discretion. Edward T. Sykes, Supervisor, be authorized to purchase equipment and supplies for the town not to exceed $20,000 and in accordance with the town procurement policy. William Eschenberg, Superintendent of Highways, be authorized to purchase tools, implements, and equipment for the town highway department and department maintenance and snow removal not to exceed $20,000 in accordance with the town procurement policy. That's Cindy Herbert be named town historian. The town designate Sullivan County Democrat as its official newspaper. The town take part in New York State Health Insurance Program for the year 2014. The town will continue its membership in the Association of Towns, the New York State Planning Federation, the New York State Magistrate Association, the Sullivan County Supervisors Association, the New York State Assessors Association, Sullivan County Assessors Association, the Orange Sullivan Town Clerks Association, the New York State Town Clerks Association, Sullivan County Tax Collectors Association, the New York State Association of Tax Receivers and Collectors, wow,
I know.
Association of Public Historians, Tri-County chapter of the New York State Building Officials and the New York State Association of Town Superintendents of Highway. I want to add to that, and that is the Upstate New York Association of Towns. The building inspector shall be required to attend and participate in all meetings of the town, planning board, and town board. Planning board, zoning, and town board. The town board shall review the investment and procurement policies for possible changes prior to the April meeting. The town board shall review the emergency management plan prior to the April meeting. That the code of ethics be adopted. Wasn't that, didn't we change that in,
We changed it to have the state, the state.
but this says 2006.
That's when it was adopted by the town.
That was when
board.
it was originally.
Just
adopted.
re-adopted.
Okay,
it every
okay,
year.
we adopted, code of ethics adopted in 2006. The bookkeeper shall be the primary person to hold access to the federal treasury for the purposes of drawing down funds required for any community block grants. Earl Birch be retained as financial consultant to the town and to assist in the preparation of the annual report at a per diem rate of $25 per hour. That Tom Shepstone be retained as the planner for the town at a per diem rate of $115 per hour, plus out-of-pocket expenses. The court constable shall receive $15 per hour on a per diem basis. That the positions of deputy supervisor, deputy town clerk, tax collector, deputy superintendent of highways, and deputy building inspector be created. And that, my friend, is it.
Are we supposed to put on here that we continue our membership in the UDC? Is that supposed to be?
It's never been on here, but we're just part of a membership.
Okay, I didn't know whether it had to be on here or not.
These are the organizations that we
The
pay
highway, the
dues
scenic
to.
Oh, you
byway's
pay
not on
dues
there
to-
either.
We pay
Okay.
dues to these organizations and
All right.
that is not.
Now, I do need, I need a resolution to accept the organizational positions as I read. So,
I'll make a motion.
and second,
Go ahead, Cindy.
city second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that, we're done.
Takes care of that. Now, I don't see Mr. Bodenstein.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, is he? Yep, hiding over.
Oh, yeah, he's so,
I can't see him through the post.
okay, tonight, our regular board meeting will come to order, and we have a guest of the board tonight, Dave Bodenstein from the Mike Price Agency. And he is going to talk about the upcoming February insurance renewal.
We don't.
Thank you.
Extra, two extras, ID cards, all your stuff. Just as a reminder, on your front cover, you've got the town and your sewer district are all included in your program. Your coverage is written through NYMER, which is the reciprocal. You've been there for quite some time. You flip to the first page. We go over your building and contents coverage. What we do is we add, on the next couple of pages is a list of all your buildings and contents. We list them, add them all together, take a 90% of that total figure, and that's what they use for a blanket amount of coverage. So essentially what that means is that that total limit of $2.5 million would apply to any one loss. So theoretically, you should never be in a position of being underinsured. It's written on special form, which is the broadest property coverage that's currently available. The income and expense coverage at $250,000, the accounts receivable, the off-premises coverage, the backup of sewer and drains, the property in transit, personal effects. Those are all things that are automatically included as part of NYMER's program. Those aren't limits that we actually choose. They do include flood coverage as part of the program. You have $1 million of flood coverage subject to a $25,000 deductible, and that applies to all of your locations that are not in what we would consider a high hazard zone, which would be an A or a B zone. So if you had properties that were in an A or a V zone and you wanted flood coverage, you would actually have to buy a separate flood policy. The boiler machinery limit just simply mirrors your total property limit. The next page is a list of all of your buildings and contents, as well as your other locations. I went through this list with Ed about a month or 6 weeks ago. It is an increase, a total limit increase of about $100,000 in coverage compared to last year. One of the things that is included, if you take a look at your very last location, location 8, was your park or your landscape project that you did last year downtown. So that's included in there as well.
We were required to carry
Required.
coverage on that per the grant.
So,
I mean, we leased the property, but we don't own it, but we were required to ensure the improvements.
Improvement, yeah.
on the next page, on the top, crime coverage, money and securities on and off your premises. That's if somebody other than an employee were to steal from you. Again, that limit of $10,000 is something that's included automatically as part of NYMER's program. This next section is your general liability insurance. This is where you pick up coverage if you get sued. Bodily injury, property damage, personal injury, advertising injury, products and completed operations all fall under the definition of general liability insurance. You have $1 million per occurrence with a $2 million annual aggregate. So we'd pay $1 million for any one claim, never more than $2 million in any one policy year. The only part of the general liability insurance that actually has a deductible would be the employee benefits liability coverage. Again, you carry $1 million limit, but that would be subject to a $1,000 deductible. But that's the only part of the general liability insurance that actually has a deductible. The next section is your public officials liability coverage. This is where we pick up coverage for your boards. Town board, planning board, zoning board, all included. Again, $1 million per occurrence with a $2 million annual aggregate. You do have a $2,500 deductible here, but what NYMER does is it's done on an indemnification basis. So what that means is that if you get sued and you win, their case is unsuccessful, the deductible does not apply. The only time the deductible would actually apply is if you lost the suit. Okay. Your OCP coverage, that's something that's required by the state of New York. Anytime you get permits, they require that you have a separate policy that lists the state so they're not diluted. $1 million per occurrence with a $2 million annual aggregate. Next page is your auto coverage. Again, $1 million under your liability. We include hired and non-owned liability. Uninsured, underinsured motorists, again, is mandatory coverage in the state of New York. Mutual aid coverage of $1 million. The personal injury protection in the state of New York is no-fault insurance. We're a mandatory no-fault state. The minimum is $50,000. The maximum is $150,000. You carry the maximum limit of $150,000. The OBEL is optional basic economic loss coverage. Essentially, that's an additional $25,000 of no fault, but the reason they list it separately is the injured person at the time gets to decide if they want that to go towards their lost wages or their medical claim. It's up to them at the time. And the $5,000 of medical payments. Your vehicle list, I met with Bill to go over your vehicle and equipment list. All of your vehicles have stars next to them, which means that with the exception of the 1980 trailer, what that means is that we can provide the physical damage coverage, the comprehensive and collision coverage on the inland marine policy. What that allows us to do is any of your road maintenance vehicles that are 10 years old or newer can be written on a replacement cost basis, which we'll go over on the next page. Next page at the top is your umbrella policy. You have $5 million per occurrence with a $10 million annual aggregate. The umbrella policy or the excess policy goes over top of your other liability policies. Your auto liability, general liability, and public officials. So you have a total of $6 million for any one covered claim. The only exclusion or exception, I should say, to that is under the public officials. If you're sued for a land use claim, you have $1 million under the public officials, but the umbrella would not go over top of it. And they do not offer that as an option either, so you can't even buy up for an option. You do have a bond, $15,000 with excess limits on your tax collector, your deputy tax collector, supervisor, and they include $50,000 of forgery and alteration coverage. That is actually the only coverage that's not provided by NYMER. That's written by National Grange, and that renews on a calendar year basis, so that policy has actually already renewed January 1st. Next page is a list of your equipment. Again, I went over this with Bill. We made a few changes, not too many. The equipment is written on an agreed value basis, so what they're saying is it's basically like, kind, and quality. So what it would cost to replace that same piece of equipment in its current condition today.
Depreciated.
Yep. So we went through those limits with Bill. The EDP equipment is computer equipment and alike. And then we have the miscellaneous. The reason we list that separately, the $15,000, is that would cover tools and equipment that might be like on your trucks or off your premises. $15,000. Next page on the top, we've got your coverage for the sewer department. Again, that's subject to a $1,000 deductible. And then you see your list of vehicles. The ones that are written on an actual cash value basis and the ones that are provided on a replacement cost basis. So the ones that are written on a replacement cost basis, we're gonna replace an old truck with a new truck. So that's what they should be insured to, approximately what they would cost to replace today. When I was going over this afternoon, there is one error on here, and I'll talk to Bill about this tomorrow. I'll give him a call. Number 7, your 2003 GMC that we have for $45,000 on replacement cost, it won't qualify anymore. We just won't. He and I went over that list. We just missed that. So I'll get an idea from him what the actual cash value of that should be, and we'll make that change. Okay.
So that's out?
It'll still be covered. It'll just be for a reduced amount. I'm assuming he's going to say probably $15,000 or $20,000.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure that you pay much more for that than around a 10-year-old tonner. I wouldn't think, but I'll check with him and get his input, obviously. On the bottom, we just have a summary of your inland marine coverage by department. That's your total. And the last page is your premium. Your premium's actually down, not quite, but just about $1,000 compared to last year. In addition to that, if you remember a few months ago, you got a check for just under $1,000, and that was the interest, or their first interest payment that from the money that you put up originally, your capital that you put into the company. So actually, compared to last year, you're about $2,000 less, just short of $2,000 less than what you paid last year. On the bottom, we give you some historical reference as far as what you've paid, and as high as $44,000, and you're down to $34,000 currently. NYMER continues to, and we encourage our towns to use it. They're continuing, like a lot of the specialty programs, they're continuing to do more and more services online. I just got another email today about a driving class that they do. Some of the classes can actually be done online. Some of them you can request, and they'll come here and do. They're pretty proactive. So if you've got some issues that you need some help with, and you don't see them on there, and you think the insurance company might be able to help, don't be afraid to give me a call, because lots of times they will help. Today,
Will those safety classes reduce the premiums at all?
no.
They offer-
But what happens is when you get those years where maybe your experience isn't as good, they look back and say, have you been taking those classes? Have you been participating? Is your supervisory or your management personnel, are they doing what they're supposed to? Or are they saying, we're not really interested, we're gonna do it our way, but maybe their way's not working so well, and maybe that's why you're having some claims trouble, which in the end costs you more premium. So, but will they actually give you a 5% or a 10% discount because you take that class? The answer is no.
They do provide classes, though.
Yes, yep,
We had a class last year on, it was at the town of Calhoun.
it was a highway safety class.
And it
Yep.
was, no, you know what, it was
Flagging.
on the digging, call before you dig.
So they continue to do that, In our area, there are a lot of municipalities that are insured with NYMER, so they do try to do them relatively locally.
Yeah,
So you can get to them, obviously,
good
they're not,
idea.
they're not expecting you to do a lot of driving, because that's probably not gonna happen.
do they notify, like, if somebody in Fallsburg's gonna have something, do they notify us then
Yeah.
too?
Yeah,
That would be good.
so,
What would be your reason why insurance premiums are going down?
NYMER's had pretty good experience, actually. That's really one of the reasons that they've returned to capital and they're returning the interest. Overall, the program's been very successful. One of the things that NYMER tries to do, and they've done a pretty good job of it, is trying to control premiums both on the upside and the downside. You don't tend to get the big swings and gyrations that you'll get other times in the market. Now, the last 4 or 5 years, the market in general has been pretty stable. But I know, as an example, in like 2006, rates dropped like 15 or 20%, but just in 1 year. NYMER came down that year about 8 or 9%. But 2 years later, a lot of the companies were
Swung
taking
back up.
15, 20% increases, and NYMER was pretty much holding the line. So their idea is, from a municipality's perspective, when you're trying to put budgets together and where are we gonna be, it's very difficult to budget for some of those high swings. Whereas if you're sort of steady Eddie, maybe we're gonna come up a few percent, down a few percent, those are issues that you can budget for.
Because here in 10 years, we're down, $8,000, and with inflation and the value of equipment, it's gone way up.
Right, you have more coverage, and you're probably paying about 30 to 40% less.
Right, yeah.
Now, I'd like to tell you that that'll happen forever, but probably
25 years, we're gonna get it for nothing.
Yeah, right.
probably someday you're gonna pay more.
Yeah,
So you sort of take advantage of it when you can get
pay
it.
now or pay later.
Yeah. So, any other questions?
Anybody got any questions
problems?
for
Very good,
Dave?
David. Very good.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you for
Dave.
the
Good
business, we
job.
appreciate it, and if you have any questions or problems, obviously feel free to get hold of me. Thank you.
Dave. This is good.
All right, we're gonna start the meeting. We have to accept the minutes from the last board meeting, and the special meeting. Cindy made the motion. Can I get a 2nd?
I'll second that.
Okay, Tess, you're up.
Okay, I'm gonna be quick. December receipts totaled $1,194 with $11.39 turned over to the supervisor. Of that, $801 was building fees. So far, the new DEC licensing system isn't working very well, and Bethel is up and running, and I think Neversink is up and running, but I'm not. Tax season has begun, so I'm very busy now for the next few months, and I've collected about $250,000 so far, and with just a few days of collection. Correspondence, there's a secret training session to be held January 15th from 5 to 9:30. It's a great training opportunity for our planning board members, and they've all been notified. The Association of Towns is holding their annual meeting, and that is in February. I have information about it, along with the resolutions that they're supporting that go to New York State. And that's all I have. If you want any information on that, get back in touch. I have it. That's it.
Okay. Superintendent Highways Bill is not here. Obviously, I would like to mention that there's been a lot of storms. He's been, we really had a break last year, and this year is just the opposite. And I'm not even sure if you know this, but they found the part for that 94.
Oh, good.
So
Hallelujah.
that's a good thing. So one of the trucks was out of commission, and it should be in soon. It should be back on the road.
To get it fixed, we should send it out to Barrett Jackson as the auction places, you know, an antique.
Well, it isn't really, it's 94, it's what, 19 years old?
That's close enough.
Yeah, 20-year-old truck. And incidentally, the guys are all doing that repair work in-house.
What amazes me is when you look at the truck, it looks like it just came out of the
Funny,
showroom.
yeah,
They
Harold
take-
and I were down there, we said, he said,
Where's it?
which truck is it? You know, because this truck that was up there looked like
Yeah.
brand new, you know? He takes good care of his stuff.
He does.
Okay, next up is the building inspector, Jim. I don't know if anybody knows Jim McElroy. He's our new building inspector, and,
Jim?
welcome aboard.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Pretty quiet right now. It's very cold, not a lot of building going on. But there's 8 new houses going up in the town, and they're still continuing. And there's 2 minor violations that I'm looking at, and one new person who's applying to the ZBA for a variance as of today. And it's pretty much boilerplate. Other than that, nothing else going on.
Okay. Thank you. Assessors, Renee, where are you? Oh, behind the pole.
I just want to remind everyone that exemption applications and renewals are all due by March 1st. With data collection, we've put it on hold for a couple of weeks due to the weather. So now we're focusing on updating all the records and the files and printing out photographs and so on. So hopefully next week we might be back on the road. So,
And
it's about,
are we on schedule?
yes.
With, we had a plan.
Data collection, it's, once we collect the data, trying to update the records in the office, that's the tedious part. So, but it's going okay so far.
Good.
That's it.
Okay. Kara, grants coordinator, not here, Kara's not here. Mentioned again last month, Tess and Kara really went the extra mile, and I just have to thank them again. And it looks like we're still on track for that hazard mitigation grant. Callicoon Creek Park Committee, I don't see anybody here. Harold, UDC rep?
Yeah, I'll first hand out the pretty colored pictures here. This, due to the holiday, it's a little discombobulated because this chart is from that they had up online was December 19th. So they haven't had a new chart since then. Now it was interesting because the total storage in the Delaware River Basin was 76%. Cannonsville had 73.4, Pepacton 75.1, and Neversink 86.9. Now that's on December 19th. If you flip the other side, they got this thing all done, but through the 31st. And if you look at the left column, you'll see when we had snow and when we had that rain that left, because you can see the high flows, the big numbers that have come down. As I said, that was what, roughly 76%. As of the 31st of December, it had gone up to 85%. So there was a 10% increase in the storage in that time frame because of the melt and all that stuff we had. That's all I have to say about that. I can't give you much information about the meeting because the meeting hasn't happened. It'll happen tomorrow night, so I can't report on something that hasn't happened. However, the town and lots of other towns, there's a huge long list of CCs on this letter from the Upper Delaware Council to just about everybody from senators and all the towns and people all interested with the UDC. And the reason for that is we are losing our superintendent. He's retiring. The National Park Service superintendent is retiring this month, and they will be looking for a replacement. And for us at the UDC and for this town, it's a big deal because they usually bring in somebody who has experience as a park superintendent or a deputy park superintendent. But this is not a park. This is a scenic and recreation area. It's a whole new ball game, and you have to educate these people as to what this is all about. They know about protecting the river, but they are not used to the fact that people own the land through this whole thing. They just are not used to that. So it takes a while to do that, and this whole letter that went out, you have that on file, don't you, in case anybody wants to see that? It's very, very important that we get the right kind of a person who knows how to work with the people along the river, as well as to do his job in protecting the river. So that's, my goodness, if you want to see this, I'll leave it up here. There's CCs from all over the place, lots of them. That's all I can tell you. I haven't had the meeting yet.
Lori Rainey had a nice article in today's.
Yes, she did, too.
Yesterday's paper.
Yeah, she's right on top of it. Very good. She's a good one. We really appreciate Lori.
All right, next on the agenda is the supervisor's report. The only thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was the county is applying for a grant for river access, and they'd like to have an access point for each township along the river. How we fit in, I mean, the town of Fremont, they're working on one in Long Eddy. How we fit in, we've pretty much decided that we're gonna try to use the old river access, which was behind the youth center, which will require a change in where they put the flood, flood control canal, whatever, what do you wanna call it, to allow so that we don't have to cross that road. And that's gonna be part of their grant, I believe. It hasn't, none of this is, but they also went on down every town along the river all the way to the port. So that's moving along, and they're gonna have another meeting later this month, and then they schedule, I think, a final meeting in February. At this time, I want to entertain, under old business, a resolution to appoint John Gain as a town board member, and I need a resolution to that effect, and then I'm gonna ask Justice Kramer to do the oath with John. Cindy make the resolution?
Need a motion?
Yep. Cindy made it,
Okay, I'll second.
second by Al, all those in favor?
Aye.
Stand up, John, take your medicine.
Raise your right hand, please. I, John Gain,
I, John Gain,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Councilman of the Town of Delaware,
of the office of Councilman for the Town of Delaware,
County of Sullivan, State of New York,
County of Sullivan, State of New York,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
John, would you please sign the oath?
Congratulations, John.
This is an item that's not on the agenda, and that is, we need a resolution to accept the NYMER proposal that David went over. Because that insurance is up in early February.
Okay,
Okay, make a motion.
I'll second it for
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Truly.
Well, yeah, he planned, this is Muller Road.
State Route 52, Muller Road to Lansbury Road. So, he should just use that part.
Okay, I can do that. All right, the next item under new business is the agreement for expenditure of highway monies, the Highway 1 agreement. And he's earmarked $62,500 to do Muller Road between Route 52 and leading to, wait a minute, on the road commencing at New York State Route 52, leading to Muller Road,
To Lounsburg.
to Lounsbury.
Which is-
Lounsbury, where is
where the
Lounsbury?
town line
Town of
is.
Coshocton line is.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, I'm thinking of-
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so it's all, it's just basically, it's all about, okay.
Lounsbury Road is the first
That's the
road
town.
to the left.
To the left, yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Right
town
across
line.
from,
Town line,
Right
exactly.
by Akron.
Town line.
Moots.
Right.
Okay, now, I need a resolution,
Can we have a motion?
a motion
So
to
moved.
adopt this, I guess. A second by John.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You all need to sign that too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you all sign, it was,
I've already signed it, but you guys have to sign.
you only gave me one.
You're following the
Oh, and we did that, okay. The NYMER insurance renewal, see, that wasn't on mine,
town.
Okay, yeah, cause I found that.
okay. Okay, the next item is planning board appointment, which is Warren Blumenthal has agreed to re-up. And, so, we need a I guess we need a resolution, right?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
No, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And, resolution, official undertaking of municipal officers. Now, is that this?
Yeah, that's that first page.
Do I have to read the whole thing or no?
No, the board has it on, in their files, and actually it just says that you're not going to steal money.
Oh, I
Okay,
made that motion.
Whereas various sections of the state, of the state, town law, and public officers law require certain municipal officials execute an official undertaking. And whereas the town board of the town of Delaware hereby require the supervisor, town clerk, tax collector, town justices, and highway superintendent to execute said official undertaking as required by said law. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the town board of the town of Delaware, approve the document entitled Town of Delaware Official Undertaking of Municipal Officers as to its form and manner of execution and the sufficiency of the insurance. And be it further resolved that said official undertaking contain the notarized signatures of those named municipal officials be filed in the office of the town clerk, as well as the original copies of the insurance policies indicating the sufficiency of the securities to indemnify the town against losses which may arise from failure of such officials to properly discharge their duties, and that's the public official's bond.
So we need a motion on that.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And this is for you, Tess, John Kramer, Nystrom, and Eschenberg.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're done.
Public comment?
Huh? Public comment, yeah, but I mean, we,
We got to the end of this thing?
yeah. With some confusion, but we made it. Somebody,
Oh, we gotta do the vouchers.
yeah, we have to do the vouchers
After public comment.
after public comment.
Okay.
I'm waiting for you to.
Did somebody?
One of those sign it, so.
Need
Somebody
copies?
raised a hand? Okay. I thought somebody raised a hand over there.
Okay.
Is it public comment?
Yes,
Just a question on the third or last page of the reorg agenda. There's several items, 4 items that are listed here. The investment and procurement policies, emergency management plan, code of ethics, and the annual report. And I'm just wondering, are all of these posted on the town website?
They're all available in my office too.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions? Okay. Can I get a resolution to accept the,
I'll do that.
Second.
The bills.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Pay the bills? Okay, and we'll adjourn. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
To adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
John Gaines, first official act. Second.